Tonight on The Wrap, the worst week of my life. Nicola Sturgeon speaks publicly for the first time since her estranged husband pled guilty to embezzlement. The former Scottish First Minister insists she was completely exonerated and was married for many years to someone she didn't really know at all.
Nicola, why won't you answer questions from the media in relation to your husband?
Also tonight, conflicting reports from Washington and Tehran about whether an agreement for the US and Iran to extend the ceasefire is ready to go, pending approval from President Trump. Police in Hampshire are forced to apologise for handcuffing a teenager moments before he died, after a man is found guilty of his murder. Another 2 young people are confirmed to have died in open water during the record-breaking UK heatwave. We speak to a mother who has campaigned for greater awareness of the dangers. We discuss the day's biggest stories with journalist and author Christina Patterson and Rod Liddle, presenter at Times Radio. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Good evening. Now, former Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has spoken publicly for the very first time since her husband was convicted of embezzling over £400,000 from the SNP. She said that she was totally cleared of any wrongdoing, but said that she still faced suspicion nonetheless. Well, she has been completely clear and she has been exonerated, so therefore angry that the finger of suspicion still points at her. Christina.
Well, I believe her when I do actually believe that she, for whatever reasons, doesn't seem to have suspected, but she does seem to have lacked curiosity to an absolutely extraordinary degree. And I find it astonishing that I can't begin to imagine what their marriage was like, that she knew so little about him. But I also do feel sorry for her because I think it's a dreadful situation all round.
Rod?
Yeah, I don't feel particularly sorry for her because I'm not absolutely sure, and I can't really go down this line much further, that I believe her. Simple as that.
Well, let's take a look at some of what she told a literary festival in Ireland this afternoon. This has been probably the worst week of my life. The last few years have had some tough weeks for me, but this one, I think, surpasses all of them. Coming to terms with the fact that I spent many years married to somebody that, as it turns out, I obviously didn't know at all, is a really painful truth to process. I was completely exonerated, totally cleared, and yet that doesn't stop this week. Many people pointing the finger of suspicion at me all over again and trying to hold me responsible for somebody else's crimes and having to go through that in a very, very public way. Let's bring in our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillis, who was at that festival in Ireland and tried to speak to Nicola Sturgeon. You didn't get very far, though, did you, Conor?
Yeah, that's right. And the reason that we were circling, trying to ask questions here is because this has been the biggest political scandal in Scotland in very many years. The duo at the top of politics, Nicola Sturgeon, the one-time SNP leader and First Minister of Scotland, and her husband, now estranged husband, Peter Murrell, who was for 2 decades at the top of the party as well in the form of the chief executive officer. Well, this week, on Monday, came that bombshell news after years of a police investigation examining the SNP's funding and finances. After that raid on the couple's home on the outskirts of Glasgow that resembled something like a murder scene with a tent out on their front lawn, came that revelation that Peter Murrell admitted his guilt to the tune of £400,000 of embezzlement of SNP funds. Donations that had been made by activists, by campaigners who were hoping to funnel that money in towards a second Scottish independence referendum. The reality was Peter Murrell was furnishing his own pocket by buying lavish goods, luxury items that he simply couldn't afford himself. That included a £100,000 camper van, watches, there was a Jaguar car, even salt and pepper grinders that cost a couple of £1,000s as well. Now, Nicola Sturgeon has maintained throughout all of this that she knew absolutely nothing. Of course, she found herself in police custody, facing questions, arrested and then released without charge as part of this long-running investigation, and reiterating this week when that admission of guilt came from Peter Murrell that she knew absolutely nothing. Now, you might be wondering why we're in Ireland here tonight. Well, as you said, there was that appearance of Nicola Sturgeon today, the first public appearance since that guilty plea earlier this week from her husband, and clearly this was her opportunity to try and tell the audience of those who'd gathered, paying €20 a pop, to hear her thoughts on this, her first moment to tell the audience a bit about this. Now, afterwards, we attempted to ask questions of Nicola Sturgeon, given some of the additional information and the additional questions that are swirling around her leadership and how this was able to happen under her nose for so many years, but we didn't get very far. Let's have a listen. Nicola, can you understand why?
Sorry, filming in here. Sorry.
Nicola, can you understand why some people don't believe you when you said that?
You know the story.
Nicola, why won't you answer questions from the media in relation to your husband? It was a pretty difficult moment, barged by security as Nicola Sturgeon did a runner into the kitchen there. Some of the questions we were hoping to pose to her was around that apparent lack of curiosity about what was going on with the finances. What did it say about her leadership of the SNP, that these crimes, that this was allowed to happen to the tune of hundreds of thousands of pounds and went unchecked for so long? And we know that the motorhome itself was parked outside her in-laws' house for as much as 2 years, yet she says that she knew absolutely nothing about it. Now, there are some significant questions from those who were part of the SNP's ruling body around the time of these crimes being committed. They say they tried to raise questions, they tried to raise suspicions, and they were severely pushed back by Nicola Sturgeon, and their claims and allegations were quickly shut down. So these questions will continue for Nicola Sturgeon herself. She's been cleared of any criminality, but also for the SNP as well. They have many questions to answer too.
Connor, thank you very much for all your reporting there. Well, as Connor said, and we must state, Nicola Sturgeon was arrested in 2023, released without charge, cleared at the direction of the Crown Office and the Procurator Fiscal Service as well.
Good. Well, good for her. That's very lucky, isn't it? When you watch that film that Connor put together, did it appear to you that that was a woman who was entirely shocked by everything which has happened to her, and that she now wishes to set the record straight and tell everybody, you know, about what happened in those difficult moments when she confronted her husband or ex-husband about what had happened?
But she has set the record straight, hasn't she? She said that she didn't know anything about it, and she clearly was married to a man that she didn't actually know at all.
Yes, that's stretching it a bit, isn't it? And she also won't answer any questions directly, as we saw there, clearly on the camera. She ran away from the questions. She had no intention of saying anything more about this. I'm sure, look, if she has been exonerated, as you rightly say, she is, under the law, totally innocent of everything. And we are therefore not led to believe, but we must believe that she is pristine and must have had the most bizarre relationship with a husband that you could possibly imagine, given that they lived together and the camper van was parked next to her drive. I can't really say any more without incurring a huge writ, really.
Christina, just your thoughts on whether you have any sympathy for her at all, because, I mean, some of the things that she says, that to be in a position of such public turmoil myself makes it even harder. This is not a private thing. It would be hard enough if it was a private thing, but it's very, very public.
Well, actually, I did have sympathy. I have a lot less after watching that report, actually. And also, she's flogging her memoir. So that's why she was at this literary festival. And, you know, it's possible she felt totally duty-bound not to let down the audience. It's also possible she wanted to sell some more copies of her book. I think one of the things that strikes me is that she was very much a vibes politician. I know it's a kind of the fashionable word for it now, isn't it? But she was, in her role, a good communicator. She you know, took on the baton that Alex Salmond had held aloft for some years and almost managed to convince the Scots to vote for independence, and had that one burning desire. And it seems to me that, and when we look at what happened, for example, to education or health in Scotland, you know, the outcomes there are not good. So the SNP's performance has not been impressive, but the desire for independence, although they didn't win the referendum, has continued, and the SNP keep being voted into power and have just been voted in again, in spite of this terrible scandal, which I find astonishing. So I do think she came across in that footage as evasive. I understand that you don't want to do a media interview just before you're about to do a live event, but given what a consummate media performer she's always been,
yes, a brilliant performer.
I find that very surprising. And I do also think that I mean, she claims that you know, they were both well paid, and he did seem to be buying some extremely bizarre things. I mean, I think we have to assume he wasn't an entirely well man, really. I mean, he obviously had some, you know, who buys a 2,000 quid salt and pepper shaker? I mean, it's very, very weird. But she must have noticed he was, you know, that he was a weird man when she married him, and he remained a weird man, and they had a weird relationship. So maybe she just had a weird lack of curiosity about the whole thing, but it certainly doesn't build any faith in her, I must say.
But do either of you, just very, very quickly, give her credit for raising the subject at this literary festival?
Not really, not really. No, I mean,
she
you
ran
can
away
hardly.
from the questions.
Yeah, I mean, of course she was going to talk about it. She had to, and she's already put something on Instagram. I also find it strange that she would say this was the worst week of her life. You'd have thought being arrested would be slightly worse than actually your husband confessing to something he very clearly did.
Should we move on to
I can sense you want to.
international affair on equally very, very serious topic. The briefing war on the imminence of a potential agreement between the US and Iran continued today, as sources within the Trump administration said that a memorandum of understanding to extend the ceasefire was ready to go, subject to the president's approval. Not true was the reaction from Tehran. A little earlier, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked about the prospects of a deal.
Is there an agreement with Iran on the table?
The teams have been going back and forth, and President Trump has made it very clear, he talked about it at the cabinet meeting, that he has several red lines. And Iran has to turn over their highly enriched uranium. They cannot pursue a nuclear weapon. And the Strait of Hormuz, back to your question on energy, has to free transit. Navigation of the seas has to be free and open as it was before. So he's not going to take a bad deal. He's going to make a great deal for the American people.
Our US correspondent Mark Stone has the latest.
It is very confusing. There's contradiction, there are U-turns, there are claims which then turn out to be not true. And in fact, you know, not for the first time, I left that briefing at the White House more confused, not less confused, because Scott Bessent appeared to contradict what White House officials had said just an hour or two before, which was to confirm the reporting earlier in the day that the two sides had reached, as you say, not a deal, but a deal to sign a memorandum of understanding that would give them a 60-day space to be able to discuss the thorny issue which prompted President Trump to launch this war in the first place, which was the nuclear issue. So a memorandum of understanding where they would agree to discuss nuclear weapons and Iran's ability to produce them, the enriched uranium and all that sort of stuff. And then Scott Bessent at the podium said, no, that's not what's happened. Nothing will be signed until the president is satisfied that Iran has agreed to all his red lines, all his demands. So not an agreement to discuss it, but an agreement that Iran has effectively capitulated. So honestly, it's hard to know where things are. I think we're just going to have to wait and see what emerges over the next 24 hours. But look, the fact that that there is discussion of some sort of a deal, some sort of a memorandum of understanding, that has got to be positive. But the wider point is that, you know, it's hard to see where this goes and how it can stick.
Well, earlier today, Donald Trump spoke to Fox News. He was asked what it would take for him to authorise the US military going on the offensive within Iran again.
Well, a deal that wasn't going to be good for us is the line, ultimately, because, you know, I'm playing it out and we're going to see, and that's what I do. I negotiate, they negotiate. They're very good negotiators. They're crafty. But in the end, we have all the cards because we've defeated them militarily. Look, they have no Navy. Every ship, they have 159 ships. Every one of them are at the bottom of the sea. Every single one. We take pictures of them. We have people going down taking pictures of hundreds of ships. Their Navy is totally gone, 100%. Their Air Force is totally gone, 100%. Their military, we've sort of left it alone because we think that their military is somewhat moderate. They have other people that aren't moderate. We've taken them out. We've taken different forms of leadership out. We've actually left their military alone. People would be surprised to hear that. Because mistakes have been made in wars where you wipe out everybody and then you have a country that's, you know, for 40 years can never rebuild.
So the president there saying that he has all of the cards and he's militarily defeated Iran.
Yes, we're in exactly the same place that we were in 4 months ago. No difference whatsoever. The sticking points are clearly the enriched uranium and the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz, of course, is a new one which Donald Trump managed to manufacture for himself. It's an enormous problem. You cannot believe anything you hear from any of the briefing reports. I'm not surprised the correspondents are confused by them. They have the kind of aura of something from the late 1960s psychedelic movement. It just, nothing makes sense. A ceasefire is announced, and yet the bombs continue to fall wherever that ceasefire is announced. I mean, what is said by the politicians bears no relation whatsoever to what the reality on the ground is or the reality in Iran. Here we are in this war which Donald Trump told us would last, I think, was it 3 or 4 weeks, I think he said it would be. And that was when? February? And we are no closer, possibly even further away. And I think Iran, despite what Donald Trump says, is probably in a slightly more strong position than it was, you know, back in the spring.
Yeah, on day 90 of the war,
day 90.
Christina, yes, day 90 today. Do you agree that Iran are actually the ones who have the upper hand?
Of course Iran has the cards. America has lost this war, and the only question is how somebody can negotiate some kind of face-saving exit for Trump. The thing is that Trump keeps changing his mind about whether he wants a face-saving exit, and he also doesn't have the attention span that will enable him to work out what he thinks a face-saving exit would be. 1 minute. And the other trouble is, I mean, the reason everybody wants him to stop is essentially because of the global economy, which is going to be terrible if this carries on. And, of course, it has already hit the pockets of so-called ordinary Americans, which Trump literally doesn't care about. He has actually said he doesn't care about that. He doesn't. It's just not even in his universe. He cares about the markets, and the markets have been doing very well. He doesn't even seem to care about the midterms. He says he doesn't care about the midterms. Obviously, Republicans are worried sick about the midterms because they're going to be, you know, losing their jobs if it carries on like this, which it probably will. And all we're talking about here is it's not a peace deal. It's just a pause to allow some oil to come out of the Straits of Hormuz, and then the nuclear issue will remain and no acceptable deal will be on the table because the Iranians are not going to give up their enriched uranium. And I don't think Trump cares about the uranium one way or the other, doesn't care about nuclear weapons one way or the other. He's going to be dead soon. What he cares about is that nobody says Obama got a better deal than him, which he did. So that's the only thing Trump cares about.
Only just, in fairness.
Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we didn't have a global economic crisis over it last time around.
No, we didn't.
And we didn't have, you know, lots of people dying in Iran. And also people are really suffering in Iran. The poverty in Iran now is absolutely horrific. And the regime is much more entrenched than it was at the start of this thing.
Yeah.
So everything for ordinary Iranians is much, much worse than it was before. And the regime is much stronger.
And do you think if Trump was offered the deal that Obama managed to secure at this point in time, that would seem very attractive to him?
He'd probably grab it with both hands. I think but I think it's not just that he isn't capable of focusing for a long period of time. It's also that, having spoken to quite a few of the Pakistani mediators who are overseeing these discussions, there seems to be no coherence from the American side.
No.
They will contradict one another within an hour.
And none of them have done negotiators. They're not diplomats, are they?
They're not diplomats, and they're not actually, as it was put to me, they're not really negotiating. They are talking about lines in the sand, and those lines in the sand change from 1 minute to the next. It's an impossibility. It's been terribly, terribly badly managed.
Yeah, and such mixed messages. Scott Bessent today announcing new sanctions against Iranian airlines, which doesn't seem to be bringing it to a close.
The Iranians, if nothing else, they're not reliable, but they are coherent. They know what they want, you know, and they're very good at getting it. They're much, much better negotiators than the Americans are.
There is a case for a war against Iran. You know, Iran is a rogue state which has sponsored so much terrorism. But this is not the way you do it, and this will only strengthen the Iranians, both at home and also, you know, amongst their fellow travellers in the world, who include, you know, Putin, China.
Yeah. Let's turn to a domestic story next. And police have apologised for arresting a university student as he bled to death after being stabbed with a ceremonial knife. Vikram Digwa told police he was the victim of a racist attack after he stabbed finance student Henry Nowak in Southampton last December. Police then handcuffed Henry, who died from his injuries. Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Amelia Harper. And Amelia, just remind us what happened last December.
Yeah, look, Gillian, this was a really sad case, and one that actually landed the police in a bit of hot water with regards to how they actually handled the scene that they were met with when they arrived. Vikram Digwa has been found guilty of murder. He carried a 21-centimetre knife, also known as a kirpan, that he said that he'd carried as part of his Sikh faith, to kill Henry Nowak while he walked home from a night out in Southampton in December last year. And Digwa actually lied to the police that he was the victim of a racist attack after he stabbed Henry 5 times, and the fatal wound was a wound inflicted to his heart. Henry was a finance student. We can see him at the back of the photo there. At Southampton University. Here he is in a lift in the hours up to his death. He was a finance student at Southampton University at the time of his death. Now, in terms of his convictions, Digwa was also convicted of carrying a knife in public, and his mother, 53-year-old Kiran Kaur, was also found guilty of assisting an offender. She took the knife that was used in this attack back home. The police then found that when they arrived at the family home, and they found a number of other Sikh weapons, a total of around 20 Sikh weapons as well. Now, as I mentioned at the start, there was a bit of controversy with regards to the arresting and the handcuffing, because what happened was police actually handcuffed the victim, Henry, as he essentially lay dying. And this is a situation that has prompted huge reaction, including from Elon Musk, the tech billionaire. He has criticised the police action, saying that he will actually fund a private prosecution against the police. This is being investigated, or the circumstances surrounding what happened is being investigated by the Independent Office for Police Conduct. We've also heard today from the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who called the police action shameful. He said that the police seemed more interested in cuffing someone accused of making a racist comment than in saving a dying man. This has prompted an apology from the police. We can hear that now.
I want to apologise. I want to say that I am sorry that Henry couldn't be saved that night. I'm sorry that he was handcuffed and arrested in the moments before he lost consciousness. It's quite clear that officers didn't understand what had happened immediately. And that is some of the context I would ask people to understand. There had been a delay from those who chose eventually to call them. There were lies from Henry's killer in that 999 phone call. Further lies from his killer as officers arrived on the scene.
Well, Dikwa is set to be sentenced on Monday, and his mother later in July, Gillian.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Quite disturbing case there, isn't it? But the police are saying that officers didn't immediately understand what was happening when they arrived at the scene because of the information that they'd been given.
I mean, it's a really awful case, just tragic that that young man died, and just awful to be handcuffed as a potential criminal when you're the one who's been stabbed and murdered. I think it's, I mean, clearly the police are at fault here, and the police force have been right to apologise. I think what is difficult is that in the 999 call, that was new information to me, that they were the operators, the emergency service, were lied to. So obviously that doesn't help matters. But it does seem a very, very heavy-handed response to that. When you've got someone who's bleeding and been stabbed 5 times, the first thing you do is to handcuff the person who is clearly in a very, very bad way. Of course, under pressure and when people have been injured, we could all make mistakes, but I'm worried about the training here. And I do worry that, you know, if we look back at Stephen Lawrence and how the institutional racism that was found to be embedded in the police and efforts that have been made since then, all of those efforts were very much needed. And there is still entrenched racism in parts of the police force, as we've seen from leaked WhatsApp messages and all kinds of things in the last few years. But this does seem to me a very clumsy response, and just awful for the young man's family.
And it has garnered some response in the political world. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, he's calling for an urgent IOPC investigation. Policing should end its fixation on race and alleged racism in the way it approaches policing. He's very much suggesting that it was skewed because of how police respond to accusations of racism.
Well, he's absolutely right. Obviously, quite patently in this case. And when the chief inspector or whoever it was who was talking about the particular case said that the police did not understand at that point, there is one thing they did understand, which is that as soon as the word racism is mentioned, that's when you go into action. That's when you take the action, which eventually, in this case, resulted in the death of this young man, because racism trumps everything. It has been elevated to a...
But had the perpetrator called police and said he was being attacked without mentioning racism, they still would have approached...
No, the
alleged attacker.
It's completely different. It's become completely skewed from all reality, to a degree that an accusation of racism can be more important than a violent crime with a knife. And that is the view which, through a series of algorithms, I suspect, the police went down. You know, well, he said this, they said that, he said this. Racism. That was the thing which dominated the investigation, which dominated the mindset of the police who were involved in that investigation. And Chris Philp is absolutely right. Something has gone very badly wrong when that is allowed to happen in this country. It has gone too far in a direction which it shouldn't have gone in.
Christina, do you think that's right, that if the police had been called to a potential attack without the word racism being used, that they would have responded differently?
I don't agree with everything you said, Rod. I mean, I do think this case is dreadful. I don't really like the way that Robert Jenrick in particular wrote a piece about it, the way that these things are politicised in a kind of general anti-woke
But it has to
thing.
be politicised.
Well,
it is political.
It is political, but I think if you were to take a broad brush of what's happening in the police force, I think you would probably find plenty of racism there. If you were to look at people's private WhatsApp messages, well, look, you can scoff, Rod. Let's ask Gillian.
Well, actually, put some figures behind what you're saying there.
Well, we've seen plenty of incidents. WhatsApp, for example, people who have shared footage of... there was, I can't remember the name of, there was a black woman who was, I think, murdered a few years ago. I'm afraid I don't remember the details, but some of the language that has been used in some of these WhatsApp groups has been terrible. And I think...
It's not a stabbing, though, is it?
It's not a stabbing. I've already said that I think this is a dreadful case, but I think it's a very big leap to go from this is a dreadful case to say there is a massive problem in the police force and that race trumps everything. I don't think race does trump everything. I think, you know...
But it did in this case, didn't it?
Yes, it did in this case, but I mean, it's quite a leap from this case to everything, Rod, and that's my point.
It's not if you look at the way in which various cases have been heard, both in public and in private, over the last 4 or 5 years, whether it be a woman being sent to prison for saying really horrible things about asylum seekers, being sent to prison for an inordinate length of time, not being allowed an appeal. There is a feeling within a lot of people in this country, and you can tell them they're wrong if you like, that the judicial process is weighted against them.
People might feel that, but in that particular case, she was inciting violence against them. She was saying that their hostels should be burnt down, and that is a crime. So she was sent to prison because she committed a crime. She wasn't saying their hostels should be burnt down.
She said burn down the hostels. We can go into the
details. We are moving away from the discussion that we'd started, but I understand your different points of view on this story. We are going to take a break. Coming up next, we'll take a first look at what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Do stay with us.
urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to warn.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
You are watching The Wrap. Time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Well, The Guardian says Labour is planning to shake up welfare to help more young people into work. On the front of the Eye, Andy Burnham hits back at former Prime Minister Tony Blair, telling him he's stuck in a retro mindset. With The Times saying the Greater Manchester Mayor will go against Blair's wishes and roll out a programme of state intervention. The Telegraph leads with the announcement that prostate screening is set to be rationed. The Mail says charities warn the decision to reject calls for mass prostate cancer screening will condemn thousands to their death. The Mirror says a member of the Raise the Colours group has been charged with murder after a deadly pub brawl. The Financial Times leads with more detail on BP removing their chairman. The headline on the Daily Express, Jewish people don't feel safe on British streets. The Metro leads on the jailing of a gang who will be swapping spa trips for prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy to supply cocaine. It's all kicking off, reads The Sun, as FIFA face legal action for ticket prices. And the Daily Star says England's World Cup base has been hit by an Ebola public health alert. We are starting with The Guardian, though. Will there be a welfare shake-up as a result of Anna Milburn's NEETS report? Rod, your thoughts?
No, of course there won't. There is no way that the Prime Minister will be able to get it through the House of Commons, get it past his own backbenchers. I think Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves both wish for there to be at least some medium tinkering with the welfare system, some brake put on the vast amounts of money we're now spending on welfare, and which is utterly unsustainable. But there is absolutely no willpower in the House of Commons for that to become law, as we saw before when it was tried. It's insuperable for both the Prime Minister and indeed the Chancellor, and it's something which I think it would be great if Andy Burnham could give us a very straight answer on. You know, does Andy Burnham think that we are spending way too much money on welfare payments? Does he agree largely with Alan Milburn that there's a kind of systemic and structural problem with the way in which young people are shepherded from studenthood into the dole, into being on benefits? Does he agree with that? Does he agree that there should be some way of combating that for the good of the country and for the good of our young people as well? We hear nothing from Andy on that.
But Alan Milburn saying that Starmer's government has shown a renewed desire to overhaul the benefit system as part of changes to tackle soaring youth employment
when did this renewed desire come about?
One presumes on the delivery of his report. He says, I've spoken to Cabinet Ministers about it. My sense is that there is an appetite to go back into this and to go back into it in the right way.
Well, can I just say, I think if Milburn's right, that's all for the good. And Milburn is a highly intelligent and very, very innovative thinker when it comes to welfare payments and so on. But there is absolutely no sign that anything has changed within the Labour Party which would enable such legislation to get passed through.
But Christina, Alan Milburn is saying that there is a sign that they are going to look at this again.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything's up in the air at the moment because obviously if Andy Burnham wins this by-election and if he becomes Prime Minister, then who knows what he'll do. He'll face exactly the same economic constraints as anybody else would in that situation, including the bond markets. But I do think
that... He doesn't care about the bond market.
Well, no, he said he didn't care about the bond market and then he changed his mind. So I think anybody, when they are in Downing Street, including Liz Truss after she was ejected, although actually, no, I'm wrong about that, because after she was ejected, she didn't care about the bond market, either before, during or after. But most sane people would care about the bond markets when they were in that position. And I I think Andy Burnham is sane. He's more left-wing than I am, but I think he will care about the bond markets and he will also care about unemployment. It's not that members of government don't care about this issue, and they did try to overhaul welfare, but as Rod says, you know, the backbenchers, unfortunately, will not cut anything ever. So that is the problem. I think we can only hope that if Andy Burnham does become Prime Minister with some renewed energy and optimism in the Labour Party, and perhaps he'll be a bit better at party discipline and perhaps people have a bit more loyalty to him, perhaps he can present the case, which is extremely strong, that the current system is parking more than 1 million people on benefits. And the cost to them and their mental health and sanity, let alone the UK economy, over decades will be absolutely enormous. So somebody has to grip this issue.
Well, you've mentioned the Makerfield by-election. On that issue, we must talk about the other candidates in the by-election, and there are 14 candidates in all. You can see them on your screen now.
I'm voting for Count Binface, not that I have a vote, obviously, but...
I liked it when you had to read them all out.
No. Let's move on to the eye. Still talking about Andy Burnham, though, hitting back at Blair and Starmer. Rod?
Yeah, I've never had much time for Tony Blair for a whole bunch of reasons, most of them about the Gulf War, the Iraq War, and also about the relaxation of immigration rules, which we saw in the early years of his premiership. But there is absolutely no doubt that on this particular issue, he's absolutely right, that the government has to have a clear and precise plan as to what it's got to do with the country before taking office, rather than halfway through having been elected to office. And that one important part of that has to be we can only spend as much as we're earning. I mean, this is stuff which, you know, I think Tony Blair got from the Ronald Reagan talk book, because it's much the same as Reagan would have said at the time, but times have changed and the Overton window has shifted a little bit. But there is absolutely no question that what Blair said was kind of bang on the money. And I think what's going to happen now is that this is going to turn into a rancorous debate between the Andy Burnham and the left, and what is called the soft left of the party, versus those such as Wes Streeting, who are very worried by the thought of this kind of idea that there could be a huge splurge of spending once Andy Burnham is in office.
But Burnham accusing Blair of a retro mindset, and actually both he and Wes Streeting said that he didn't mention the word inequality once.
Well, I'm torn on this one, actually. I apart from the Iraq War, I have used to have a lot of time for Blair in all kinds of ways. He is right. He is the only Labour Prime Minister to win, is it 3 elections? Two.
And he got that wrong as well. Can we clarify that?
Okay.
Because actually Labour won a consecutive general election in 1950. Admittedly, they only won it by the skin of their teeth, but they did win it in 1950. So Attlee won 2 general elections, one after the other.
But Tony Blair won 3.
He won the third one, then Gordon Brown took over.
No, but what Blair was saying was that the only part...
but Blair won 3 elections. Brown took over.
Yes, he did. Yes, but the point that Blair was making was that he was the only Prime Minister to have won 2 consecutive elections as a Labour Prime Minister. And that wasn't quite right.
Anyway, let's...
it is three elections.
It is 3 elections. So I think... There's certainly, we could debate it all night about what was good and what was not good. I don't agree with him on AI. I think he has spent so much time in America that he is very much now, and the Blair Institute is sponsored by Larry Ellison, so I think he is very much his mindset now is very much that of the global elite. These are the people he advises, and governments around the world, particularly in the Gulf. And he's anti-all AI regulation. I don't think that's the correct approach. I think, yes, of course, any government needs to have some kind of programme and project for what they want to do, and this one clearly didn't. But I also think that Burnham and Streeting and Starmer are right to say that the world is very, very different to how it was when Labour came to power in 1997. For a start, there wasn't social media. That's changed everything. And as we'll see when we get onto the immigration story, facts are not necessarily the issue now. You can cut immigration, as this government has done, quite radically, and people still don't believe it. So actually, the issue isn't necessarily about having a grand bunch of policies that people buy, because people don't really engage with policy. The issue is, are you going to make people feel better, and are you going to make them feel richer? And I don't like the word neoliberalism. I think Andy Burnham's just used it in a piece in the Times. I think, you know, you shouldn't use that kind of jargon when you're speaking to, you know, just normal people who don't fill their lives with jargon all the time. But I also think that Burnham is right, that much of the current crisis in confidence in politicians actually arose from the global economic crisis of 2008. And that was to do partly with, I mean, it was to do with lack of regulation that fueled it, and then economic stagnation since then. But since then, a lot of that was about this whole idea of trickle-down, and there are whole parts of the country that trickle-down hasn't reached. So I think Blair was partly right and partly very wrong.
OK, we must move to the story regarding the heat wave and how it's been affecting people. And we know that 2 more young people have died while swimming in open water during this recent heat wave. 11 people have now lost their lives since Sunday. Experts have been warning of the dangers of cold water shock and are swimming in unsupervised waters like reservoirs and rivers. Becky Ramsey became a water safety campaigner after her son Dylan drowned in 2011. She's been speaking to Sky's This Is Why podcast about what cold water shock can do to the body.
If you imagine getting into a cold shower and it takes your breath away, so quick gasp reflex. Cold water shock is, but on a much bigger scale. Imagine your whole body hitting that water and your whole body having that gasp. You then intake water, you could panic, you could hyperventilate, you could have heart problems. I mean, there's so many things. As soon as you've hit the water, as well as panicking and struggling and all that because the water's already gone in, your body's now losing, all your blood is basically keeping your internal organs warm. So you're losing feelings in your hands and in your feet, and then it'll be your legs and then your arms.
And you can listen to that episode of This Is Why by scanning the QR code on the screen or searching wherever you get your podcasts from. Very sobering there that Becky, the mum in that piece, has been campaigning for, I think it's 15 years now. So this is a problem that has been around for some time. But is it a lack of public awareness or not enough government information as to what cold water can do?
It's terribly... Well, if it is cold water, and we don't know that it is in each of these cases. I mean, undoubtedly it's implicated in one of the cases at least, but we don't know if it's cold water, then that's a fairly simple issue to address. But I suspect it's also people not having been taught how to swim properly. And I think that's been a growing problem in this country over the last 15 to 20 years.
But Becky Ramsey saying otherwise, that what we are doing is teaching people how to swim, but not teaching them the difference between a swimming pool and freshwater swimming or open water swimming.
Well, that may be right, but I suspect there's a whole bunch of reasons behind why these people, the horrible stories, have lost their lives since the beginning of the heat wave. And I suspect it's not all down to one particular cause. Obviously, you know, public information is very, very important. So is teaching people to swim. I don't know what the state of swimming education is in this country at the moment. It's one of the things which I haven't been across particularly well, but my guess is that it's suffered along with pretty much every other part of our education system.
Christina?
Yeah, it's just desperately sad. You know, we get some good weather and then and it does seem to be, I don't know what the normal numbers would be of how many people one might expect to die in water in a heat wave. One thing it does make me think about is there's a massive fashion for, in particular, middle-class women to go in so-called wild swimming, you know, swimming in lakes and so on in cold water. I've never tempted me in anywhere at all. I once swam in Hampstead Pond at 40 degrees centigrade outside and nearly died of cold and wouldn't dream of doing it again. But it does make me realise that you know, everyone's talking about the health benefits of cold water. Well, clearly it's not always healthy, and people need to know that. I mean, I just don't like cold water, but clearly people do need to know that, because there are plenty of wellness campaigners pushing exactly the opposite views.
Yeah, there does seem to be a need for a thorough public health
It's been going on for years.
Yeah, it has. Stay with us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the cast of Toy Story 5 hit the red carpet in London this evening.
An interview that lasted nearly 5 minutes. We talked about Prime Minister Starmer. We talked about the special relationship with who he said. It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me, and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to? In the Rose Garden, in the East Wing.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
It feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. Everything in America feels kind of torn in two right now, and it has been an intense few weeks for Minneapolis.
How many more people have to die? This is not America.
A large and growing protest movement. They're vocal and they're angry.
Are these immigration rates?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
We just arrived in Doha, just ahead of President Trump, and look at that. The horse-backed military, and beyond them, the skyline of a city transformed.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appear to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
What do America's Christian faithful make of the president's pop at the Pope?
The ones that vote for him are going to vote for him through thick and thin.
Before anybody criticizes the Pope, they need to think more than twice.
Mark Stone from Sky News. Will you stop buying Russian energy? Is there any assurance for Palestinian self-determination?
Of course.
It's a big shift by President Trump.
Shift. This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's a big shift. It's very positive.
Sky News, the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News. People are directly protesting. The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Now, Toy Story 5 had its premiere in London this evening, with stars of the franchise like Tom Hanks and Tim Allen walking the red carpet, with a film focusing on the rise of children using social media and technology. Here's what Woody and Buzz had to say about screen time.
Put it down. Turn it off. Do something else. Call the neighbors and say, do you want to get together? It's actually incredibly simple, and yet why is it so hard to do sometimes?
I'm more angry with my youngest right now because I'll take her to movies and she's on the damn phone at a movie. She goes, you know, they're so used to how quickly the little things come up, 7 seconds, 8 seconds.
Seems like they'd be in favour of a ban of social media on under-16s. What do you think?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah. Oh, I agree with them, obviously, but I also agree with the point that all of these sequels are awful. So I will not watch sequels, you know, because the whole premise is taken away and it's milked for every last penneth that it can possibly give. I wouldn't have gone to see Toy Story 2, never mind Toy Story 5. Think of something new, you bores.
This isn't where I thought we were going on this discussion.
This is meant to be the feel-good story,
sorry, is it? But it's right, isn't it? You know, it's all very well.
No, not necessarily.
It's all very well Tom Hanks saying, you know, put your phone down, stop looking at the screen, watch the film. Why watch the film when it's really trash?
But is it not have been allowed to write the Barchester Chronicles because they all followed, you know, a particular thing?
Nor is a Dance to the Music of Time.
It's interesting, though, that the story in the film is that the old-fashioned toys are taking on modern toys and, you know, technological toys. I think it's called a smart tablet called Lily Pad.
I very much doubt I'll go and see it, but I think I've probably only seen one of them. But Pixar are excellent storytellers, really true, superb storytellers, and I think if you've got a trusted brand that has excellent actors like Tom Hanks involved, that's very well written, and they're tackling a contemporary issue.
OK, we're ending on a positive. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, the record-breaking hot spell is coming to an end, with temperatures dropping over the next few days to around average by Sunday. Many places will start warm and fine tomorrow, but cloud in the west will bring patchy rain, mainly over the windy northwest of Scotland. Cloud will push eastwards through the morning, allowing Wales and Ireland to become sunny by lunchtime. Rain will take over more of Scotland, while showery outbreaks will develop across central and southwest England. Elsewhere, it'll be mainly dry.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Coming up, we report from Lebanon on how paramedics are increasingly coming under Israeli attack. Do stay with us.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
Thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story? I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Tonight on The Wrap, conflicting reports from Washington and Tehran about whether the ceasefire might be extended. But is the ceasefire in Lebanon now one in name only? Sky News joins the Lebanese paramedics risking their lives to save others as Israel intensifies its attacks. Also tonight, a moral crisis. The verdict from the author of a landmark report on youth unemployment. Is it time to prioritise teenagers over pensioners? Plus, a warning of an ongoing disruption to water supplies, with thousands expecting shortages in Kent going into the weekend. We discuss the day's biggest stories with journalist and author Christina Patterson and Rod Liddle, presenter at Times Radio. Plus, the first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Good evening, Christina and Rod. Welcome. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah looks increasingly under threat, with fighting escalating over recent weeks. In Lebanon, paramedics working to save those caught in the conflict have found themselves under attack, and Israel is accused of targeting ambulances and health workers, something which they deny. Christina.
I mean, this is just horrific. I think Netanyahu is actually trying to blow up there hasn't been a ceasefire in Lebanon from the start of this so-called ceasefire with Iran. But Netanyahu's strategy is incomprehensible, except as someone who just wants to fight wars all the time. He's expanding Israeli occupation of Gaza, even though the agreement said that only 53% of Gaza should be occupied by the Israelis. His government is encouraging expansion into the settlements, into the West Bank. And what's happening in Lebanon is absolutely horrific. Not only are they massacring civilians, but they appear to be targeting paramedics and ambulances. And this shocking report, very incredible report from Alex Crawford that you've been showing today of how paramedics are living within fear of their lives. I don't know what the strategy is because, one day we hear, oh, the latest leader of Hezbollah or Hamas has been killed, and then the next day it's another one. It's not a strategy. It's horrific.
OK, well, Israel denying that they are deliberately targeting paramedics. Your thoughts, Rod?
I think the strategy is very, very simple. Netanyahu is using this strange kind of lacuna we have between peace and war, which is actually just war, as a means of eradicating from Israel's borders all those who would wish to see the country, crushed. And there are plenty of them. Some of them are in Lebanon, some of them are in Iran, some of them are further afield. But that seems to me exactly what he is doing. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but it does seem to me that if you are an Israeli politician who is committed to the security of your country, then that is the obvious thing that you're going to do, which is to get rid of those forces which would threaten the security of that country. The fact that it will not do so, I suspect, doesn't really come into the equation. I think that's what he's doing.
Well, our special correspondent, Alex Crawford, travelled to the south of the country, that is Lebanon, to see what first responders are dealing with. A warning, her report contains graphic images of wounded people.
The life of a paramedic in Lebanon is full of danger right now. The first responders don body armour and helmets to enter the war zone that's outside. There have been multiple strikes in Nabatea for days now. It's one of two major southern cities which the Israeli military is forcibly emptying. The Israeli military insists it's rooting out Hezbollah. To many Lebanese, it feels like collective punishment. The first responders know a few hundred people still remain in Nabatea, but they also know by turning up here to rescue the wounded puts themselves at risk. More than 20 medics have been killed during what's meant to be a truce. The Lebanese Health Ministry says they're being deliberately killed. The paramedics now wear GoPros to every call to counter Israeli claims that ambulances are being used to ferry Hezbollah fighters or weapons. What you're about to see will be upsetting to some and shows graphic injuries. There seem to be at least 4 people badly wounded. The first spotted is trapped under branches. A second is lying face down with critical head injuries, but appears to be conscious and moaning for help. They get him on a stretcher and between them inch the casualty over the twisted debris. This is a scene being repeated all across the south, and it's the rescuers who are the crucial link to any medical care nearby. A young medic called Ali does frantic CPR to try to revive his patient as he begins to lose consciousness. The hospital surgeons will take over now. Ali's panting gives away what he's put his body through. We first met one of the Nabatea crews at the end of March as he got emergency treatment. They'd returned from a funeral for 2 of their youngest colleagues, both teenagers, killed in an Israeli drone strike as they delivered food to those trapped in the city. Maddie insisted then, despite the dangers, they had to carry on. Who'll do this if we don't, he told us, and put his body armour straight back on to head out. It was only weeks later that Maddie too was killed in a triple tap attack. The GoPro footage from the day shows the Nabatea crews are the 3rd on the scene. The 2nd emergency crew ahead of them has already been hit. The Nabatea team is transferring those already injured medics into their ambulances, but it's at this point when they too are hit. Maddie is among those who never recover. There are altogether 4 medics killed in this single series of strikes. Israeli jets constantly circle the city. The Israeli military has been instructed to ratchet up attacks and press deeper into Lebanon. And it's very evident in Nabatea. It's these which are frustrating Israeli operations, Hezbollah's use of unmanned drones, which the military's been unable to stop. The drones are killing multiple Israeli soldiers, and Hezbollah's using them to fly into northern Israeli towns, causing terrible fear there. The emergency crews are busier than ever in Nabatea, and medics see a pattern.
Yesterday, for example, our first patients arrived at around 10ish. One of the paramedics who brought them, on returning back to his post, was killed there, and a number of his colleagues injured, became our next round of patients. So from what I've seen here, I think there is systematic targeting of paramedics, yes.
Most patients brought here are transferred once stabilised. And that's why it's too unsafe to keep critically ill patients here. An already dangerous and unstable situation is becoming worse. The crews have moved into a temporary base for security reasons and operate from here 24/7.
This is also the living room, and we all sleep here in this room.
The responsibility of deploying these teams weighs heavily on the organisation's leaders. When you're sending them out, it must go through your head that they might not come back.
Yeah. It might happen because this is a war.
Okay. Saying that we have very limited.
That's very close. The window to find casualties has abruptly closed.
We can't hang around here too long because the planes are overhead and likely to hit again.
And nothing to indicate it's going to stop. Alex Crawford, Sky News in Nabatea, South Lebanon.
Very hard to watch that, isn't it, Rod?
Horrible. And great reporting as well. Yeah, it is very hard to watch. We have to remember as well that, you know, Hezbollah is still there. It's still shelling Israelis. It's still killing Israelis. It's killing Israelis within Israel. It's killing Israelis within Lebanon. You know, the idea that this is all one-sided action on the part of Israel against Lebanon is simply not true. And it's also true, of course, that Hezbollah, which is a lot more competent and a lot stronger than Hamas ever was, that Hezbollah does use the same kind of devious methods which Hamas has used in the past in order to use paramedics as cover, to use innocent people as cover. That being said, it's still ghastly. It's still obviously the case that there is not a ceasefire, that there never was a ceasefire, and that's true on, I think, both sides, isn't it?
Mm. We see in Alice's report, she says that the medics have identified a pattern, the medics themselves, but at the same time we know that Israel's denying deliberately targeting ambulances. I just want to play a clip from an Israeli spokesperson, David Mentz, speaking to this subject. Let's listen in.
Many times, claims of casualties amongst emergency workers have been proved to be false. Of course, where there are tragic circumstances, where emergency services have been hit or caught in the crossfire, that is a tragedy. But many times these reports are simply false.
Christina?
Well, I'm afraid by this point it's very hard to believe a word that is coming out of Israel or any spokespeople from the government, because Netanyahu has said so many things that appear not to be true, not least that it would take a few days to get rid of the regime in Iran, which is what apparently persuaded Trump to launch his very ill-advised war. I'm afraid there does seem to be a pattern of targeting people who are helping other people, and that happened in Gaza too. We don't... If there is evidence that Hezbollah are using ambulances to carry weapons, and they might be doing that, then show us the evidence. But what we also saw in Gaza was children being deliberately shot and targeted who were trying to get food. They were, you know, this seems to have gone beyond defence to sadism, actually, and the just horror of what's happening to the civilian population in Lebanon is horrific. Yes, Hezbollah are an awful terrorist organisation, and they do want to obliterate Israel. And of course, you know, we all understand. No, and it's very difficult to know what to do about it. But I think the short answer is not this, because as you said a minute ago, Rod, it's not going to solve the problem. You know, you could, if you have you could obliterate, say, half of Lebanon, but you'd still get, even if you made that a complete wasteland, you would still get Hezbollah, with help from Iran, which is now strengthened, finding weapons that would break through. So it's just no kind of a solution.
My worry is that we lose track of reality here. The idea that Hezbollah is not itself attacking Israel.
It is attacking Israel.
Day after day after day.
It is attacking Israel.
And was attacking Israel before. You know, there was a war.
It is.
And I've been there and stood there as, you know, as the Hezbollah shells have gone over the top. And it's terrifying, and it's something which Israeli people had to live with every day of their lives if they were living in northern Israel. Yeah. That is what they had to live with. And so you can understand a wish, firstly, to stop that happening, but secondly also a degree of reserve in the fact that, you know, we do have to be a bit careful about who we believe and what we believe.
Well, I don't believe, but by this point, there is a lot that the Israeli government, and I absolutely stood up, you know, when after the Hamas attacks, I lost one of my best friendships over that war. Of course, the Hamas attack was terrible. Hamas are a terrible organisation. Hezbollah are a terrible organisation. They are terrorists, and they want to eliminate Israel. And of course, that is terrible for people living in Israel. But you can't kill everybody. You can't kill all the Palestinians, and you can't kill everybody in Lebanon. And that practically seems to be the Netanyahu strategy. And in the process, he is radicalising practically everybody left in Lebanon and Gaza.
Just to wrap up on this section, do you both agree that the ceasefire that's in existence is non-existent?
Yes,
it's a farce. Yeah. Well, it never was in terms of Lebanon, it never was a ceasefire. I think clearly Trump gave Netanyahu implicit permission to carry on with his war. The question will be what happens if there ever is any kind of actual peace deal with Iran, but I imagine there'll be a fudge about Lebanon. There'll have to be.
Now, let's move on to the story that we broke last night, a landmark report into youth unemployment which warns of a lost generation. The report's author, former Health Secretary Alan Milburn, said today at the official launch that this wasn't just an economic crisis, but also a moral crisis, with many young people being let down right from the start of their adult lives. Here's our political correspondent, Rob Powell.
Baking now for decades, James and his family teach younger people to make bread in their North London shop. But he says jobs have changed since he first arrived here in the 60s.
I came here on a Thursday and next day I went out and I had a job for Monday. Because there were many, many vacancies. There were 6, 7 jobs for every person.
And it's not like that anymore?
No. A lot of the businesses incur a lot of costs because of rising fuel or whatever, and are unable to hire young people.
The end of the entry-level Saturday job is one reason pinpointed by the former Labour Cabinet Minister Alan Milburn for rising levels of so-called NEETs, young people not in education, employment or training.
For far too long in our country, the NEET crisis has been swept under the carpet. Not any longer. This review exists because today Britain faces a genuine generational fault line. We do not just have a chronic problem. It is getting worse, not getting better, and we have neither a system or a plan to deal with it.
This on the day the number of NEETs crossed 1 million for the first time since 2013. The report warns of a further 250,000 within 5 years. Educational failures, the setup of welfare and healthcare are also blamed for failing to adapt to the more complex needs of young people today. But is the Starmer government making things worse, given tax rises and minimum wage hikes were flagged as barriers to taking on new staff?
This is a long-standing, long-term problem. It's been going on for many years. It's complicated and complex, as Alan Milburn makes clear. There's no single thing that you can say that's the reason. So obviously we will now work with Alan on what more needs to be done.
In Nottingham, there was little optimism about the future.
I don't have like a specific job that I want, but I would do like any work, any kind of work.
It's extremely hard to find a job nowadays, especially like finding a secure one where it's actually like stable and you're going to be like working there for a while.
It's strongly difficult for young people, I think, especially around 18 to 21, and obviously it's not only a Nottingham thing, but it's national.
A situation that won't be turned around quickly. Alan Milburn says he's been talking to all parties to try and get buy-in from across Westminster, but with some political leaders prioritising benefit cuts and others talking more about employment and health support, getting consensus could be tough, especially in these unstable political times. Recommendations will come in the autumn, a tilt in focus from the old to the young, possibly on the cards.
You know, politicians basically need to be braver and say, no, we're going to review pensioner welfare and we're going to have our own version of the triple lock, equivalent in scope anyway, for young people.
Well, all I'd say at this stage is, look, it's very striking that there's a triple lock for old people, but there's no equivalent for younger people. We have got to make this a priority for action. And that is what I'm urging of employers, as much as I'm urging of government ministers. This is not just going to be solved by public policy. This is going to have to be solved on the demand side, the employers who employ young people, as well as on the supply side.
Back in North London, James says he worries for the future.
When people like me and my age are gone, there's actually nobody left to pick up the flag and carry on, you know. They're letting it go, and it's a shame.
The consequences now clear, decisions today carrying the weight of futures to come. Rob Powell, Sky News in North London.
Yeah, a very sobering report, I thought. As I said, we broke it on this show last night. Nearly 1 million young people, 16 to 24, NEETs, not in education, employment or training. But Alan Milburn characterising it as a moral issue.
Well, it's a moral issue in the case of people ought to wish to work. I mean, that's an important
No, but they
moral
do.
thing.
I think that's one of the things that came through the report. You know, he's talked to masses of people.
I think that's right. I'm not dissing the report at all. I think Milburn's done a very good job.
And he's not blaming young people in any
And he's not
fashion or
blaming...
form.
Well, no, he's not. But there is one thing which is very, very striking and which cannot be evaded, which is if you are, 22, 23, and you're just entering the job market, and the wages that you will be given will be less than the wages you would receive if you stayed on the dole. That is a problem. We've had low wage growth for 20 years in this country, and it's hurt us in so many ways. And it's kind of broken the social contract which we have between the state and the people. And if the people look at the jobs which are being offered at the moment, which aren't particularly great jobs in many cases, and they see that they can get roughly about the same as they would get if they stayed at home and did absolutely nothing. That is the main economic problem which has to be addressed.
And he is saying that you have to make it attractive for young people to want to go out to work, isn't he, Christine?
Well, he is saying that, but I do think one of the things that he's done in this report, which is a useful thing, is that he has spoken to so many people who've said they do want to work. And seeing many of the reports that different media organisations have done in relation to this report, it's heartbreaking, actually, to hear of young people who've applied for masses of jobs, even in hospitality or, as waiters or in shops or whatever, not even getting replies to their emails. And particularly sort of sad to hear about people who sent off, and there are many, many of them, who've sent off hundreds of applications and not had any kind of response at all, because now many of the applications are done by AI and no human even reads them. So that's the kind of horrible work landscape that we're currently in, and we will be moving into even more when Tony Blair has his much longed for, totally unregulated, AI-run country. So I think it's really tough for them. But personally, and we don't yet have the recommendations, a few things have been mooted, like cutting PIP for people, I think, under the age of 21 or 22. I can't remember the age. And I personally think that's a good idea, because I don't think you should be giving people that kind of incentive at that age. And I think it has to be a combination of carrot and stick. I think you do have to not assume that young people will automatically get full benefits just because they can't work. Because, if it is too comfortable, you don't have the incentive. But I also think, clearly, as Alan Milburn has said, the system, something is going horribly wrong with the system, because young people are not being properly prepared for the workplace. And, many of us had the opportunity to do Saturday jobs or holiday jobs, and that's not happening to the same extent nowadays. So I think it's a two-way thing, but I think young people need more support, clearly need a lot more support than they're getting into the workplace.
Alan Milburn says off the back of his report that Labour ministers that he's spoken to are suggesting that they're prepared to look at the welfare system and what part that plays in disincentivising young people to work.
Well, the welfare system is obviously a massive problem, a massive, massive problem, and growing and growing and growing. But there's one other problem I'd like to sort of highlight, which is not mentioned, and I don't think Alan's mentioned it, though, forgive me if I've... it's education and what we've done with our young people.
He has mentioned it.
What we've done with education over the last 20 years, which is we've fetishised university education at the expense of more vocational education, which we should have been pouring money into, much as you and Blair, Tony Blair's son, has said, that, we have a shortage of people to fill engineering jobs in this country. And these are jobs which are incredibly well paid. But
there has been a push towards more vocational training,
hasn't there?
And apprenticeships have been brought to the fore, and hybrids between degrees and apprenticeships.
We've had a few more, but it's still the fact that for most kids who are, thinking about whether to go on to further education, will think, oh, I'll go and get a degree. And the degree is too often something which is not going to be of great importance to them in later life. What we need is a far more vocationally oriented system which gets people into really, really good, well-paying and dignified, great jobs, particularly in the engineering sector, and that hasn't been happening at the correct rate for, you know, a good 25 years.
It is something that Alan Milburn has addressed in the report. We must take a break at this point. Coming up, Jill Biden reveals she thought her husband Joe Biden was having a stroke during the 2024 presidential debate. More on that when we come back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighbourhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
You are watching The Wrap. Now, former US President Joe Biden's wife, Jill, has given an interview to American news channel CBS, saying that she feared her husband was having a stroke during his now infamous debate with Trump in 2024. His poor performance ultimately led to Kamala Harris taking over as the Democratic candidate just a few months before the election, a move that some feel cost the party power. Let's listen in.
Were you horrified as you saw it unfold?
I wasn't horrified, I was frightened, because I had never, ever seen Joe like that before or since. Never.
Or since?
Yes, or
You've
since.
never seen him like
never.
that?
No.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I mean, as I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
Quite revealing, her saying that this now. I mean, you obviously both watched the debate. Did you think that something was wrong?
It's an awful thing to say, but the question is raised, how would you know? How would you tell if he was having a stroke? Given that in countless debates before then, he had also been forgetful, hadn't known quite what he was meant to be saying, had got stuff mixed up. I think he forgot his wife's name at one particular point. And so how would you know? It's horrible. You know, I'm 66. It wouldn't even occur to me to enter a political career at this stage of my life. I mean, I'm too adult, mate. You know, it's not going to happen. And I think the great tragedy, of course, was that you had that race between a lunatic and a man who was on the verge of senility. You know, and that's the democracy in the free world. It's frightening, I found.
It's interesting to know a little bit of the backstory, because in that interview she goes on to say that she noted he was feeling unwell earlier that day, and she wondered whether he'd unwittingly taken heavy cold medication, you know, like codeine or something, and that he was actually drugged.
Whacked
in
out
effect.
of his head.
The thing is, does anybody care? Why on earth is she doing this interview now? Why didn't she say, you know what, Joe, you've lost it? Clearly you've lost it, because also, if she's saying she never saw him at any other point, anything like that, well, everybody else did.
Yes,
we now
quite.
realise that there was this mass cover-up, and all kinds of people have written books about it. And you know, the media was involved in the cover-up, the government was involved in the cover-up, and Jill Biden herself was involved in the cover-up. So all of those people bear huge responsibility for the absolute disaster that has unfolded in the world since. And we now have a president who is clearly even more demented than Joe Biden was clearly at the time of that terrible interview. So mass tragedy, really. So for her to sit there kind of giggling and saying, oh, I had no idea, it's like, well, we don't care, Jill. What we do care is that you could have taken responsibility, and you do bear responsibility for some of this disaster.
Bit harsh,
a bit angry there.
I'm absolutely furious. Look at what's happened to the world. Look at all the harm that has been unleashed on the world. I'm not blaming it all on her, but everyone involved in that cover-up bears responsibility. If they had bowed out at that point, if people had said, OK, we've known for a while he's in a bad state, we can see from this debate that he's clearly completely lost it, let's give him a graceful exit, let's give a new candidate time to take over, to at least build a proper campaign, then maybe there'd be a chance. And they didn't.
Rod, just very quickly, 10
the irony
seconds.
being that Kamala Harris was probably worse. But anyway, go on. No, sorry.
Do you think that he should have bowed out earlier?
Yeah, of course he should. Yeah.
OK. That rounds that section up entirely. Let's see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers now for you. And The Guardian says Labour is planning to shake up welfare to help more young people into work. On the front of the Eye, Andy Burnham hits back at former Prime Minister Tony Blair, telling him he's stuck in a retro mindset, with The Times saying the Greater Manchester Mayor will go against Blair's wishes and roll out a programme of state intervention. The Telegraph leads with the announcement that prostate screening is set to be rationed. The Mail says charities warn the decision to reject calls for mass prostate cancer screening will condemn thousands to their deaths. The Mirror says a member of the Raise the Colours group has been charged with murder after a pub brawl. The Financial Times leads with more detail on BP removing their chairman. The headline on the Daily Express: Jewish people don't feel safe on British streets. The Metro leads on the jailing of a gang who will be swapping spa trips for prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy to supply cocaine. It's all kicking off, reads The Sun, as FIFA face legal action for ticket prices. And the Daily Star says England's World Cup base has been hit by an Ebola public health alert. Why are you giggling?
No, it hasn't.
Well, you have to read past the headline to find out, but I suspect you may be right. We'll start with the Times and Andy Burnham responding to that 5,000-word essay by Sir Tony Blair. Take us into that, Rod.
I've got sympathy on both sides in a way, in that for a long time the Labour Party tried to recover itself from having been laden with the burden of Blair. Some of the things he did were good, the NHS was good, education in London, but only in London really, these were triumphs. And so he sits as this colossus, having won 3 elections, and uniquely having won 2 elections, which he says nobody else has done if they're Labour, because Labour is often seen by people as being unelectable a second time around, and he was able to banish that. Much of what he says, I have to say, an awful lot of it was make sure you've got a plan, and don't spend more than you can afford. Which was exactly the advice given to me by my mother when I went to Cub Camp in 1970. So I'm not sure that there was a kind of systemic analysis of what's going wrong with Britain. And I think there's probably some truth in what Andy Burnham has to say, which is that many of the problems, particularly the economic problems which afflict us today, are very, very different to those which afflicted the Labour government in the early years of this century. But nonetheless, it was I thought, an interesting assault, and I think it was interesting largely because I think it's going to lead to a few months now of pure rancour and bitterness between the right of the Labour Party, the Blairite right of the Labour Party, West Streeting and so on, and the rest of the Labour Party, depending upon how Andy Burnham frames his leadership, assuming he does get to become leader. It all very much depends upon how Andy does that.
Well, in the Times, according to the Times, he's calling for sweeping state intervention, and he's saying that neoliberalism has failed Britain, a la Tony Blair.
Well, it has failed Britain. Whether state intervention is the answer, we don't know, because he claims a lot of credit for so-called Manchesterism, but actually he wasn't the person who invented that or set those systems in place. He has done some very successful things in Manchester, but running a city is very, very different to running a country. I think when we see that, for example, in a heat wave, areas of South Kent, yet again, are without water, because apparently as soon as the sun comes out, there are whole areas of the country which don't have water, even though in this country there is rather a lot of rain. You do see some of the problems with privatisation. Now, the cost of nationalising these utilities would be absolutely enormous, and there's been no indication so far of where any of that money would come from. And Andy Burnham will face exactly the same spending constraints as any other government will currently complain, unless, for example, he were to call an election, win it, and say we're doing things differently. But that's a very big unless, and nobody in this country ever votes for more tax. So, you know, good luck with getting more money. But I think he's right. I think he is right that Blair's intervention was in many ways unhelpful. I'm not sure that I agree with you, Rod, in terms of this enormous fight between the right and the left, because I don't think there is much of a right wing of the party at the moment. There's Wes Streeting, there's Shabana Mahmood, and that's about it, really. The rest of it is very much soft left or, you know, even rump hard left. I think what there may well be, if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister, is some renewed sense of loyalty. Of course, loyalty is something that's completely disappeared from politics generally, but because at the moment, if he wins the by-election and if he does win whatever leadership, there may not be an actual contest, but if he becomes leader of the Labour Party, he will be regarded as a winner, and people, generally speaking, are kinder to winners than they are to losers. And Keir Starmer, whatever wonderful things he does at this point, is perceived as a loser, and he won't ever lose that sense of loser.
Just for a year.
Should we just try to fit some more stories in, if we can move on to the I, if you don't mind, Rod? 48% of respondents to a survey think Reform is now the main right-wing party. This is page 9 of the I.
I'm slightly surprised it's so low. I would have thought that most people who are on the right politically now think that Reform is the main threat. And certainly that's what's borne out in every by-election we're seeing at the moment, where you have, by and large, a split between the left-wing candidate, be it Green or Lib Dem or more usually Labour, and a kind of hard block of Reform voters, capped at round about 32-33% in the polls. So it's always the answer that that Reform cannot cannot defeat a candidate where the entire left is united against it, which is the important lesson which we learn from by-elections. But yes, it would seem to... this is despite, you know, the Conservative Party probably having had its best leader for the last 10 years. I think that Kemi Badenoch's done a very, very good job in very, very difficult circumstances.
That's really interesting that you say that. Would you have said that when she first came in?
No. No, I think...
Her favourability has changed somewhat, hasn't it?
Yeah, I also think necessarily it's done that there was a time when it was simply impossible for her to say anything because everybody would say, well, you loused it up, you know, for over 14 years. And so she did keep her powder dry a bit. But I think since the beginning of this year, she has been, you know, articulate, punchy, and striking home, but it has no effect at the moment, or very little effect. I mean, she has seen the polls rising a bit. It's not having the right effect in the polls at the moment. I mean, the Conservatives are still seen as a party which is saddled with failure.
We mentioned the by-election in the context of Andy Burnham, so we just must tell you the other candidates standing in that Makerfield by-election. There are 14 candidates in all, and you can see them on your screen right now. Coming up next, we'll take a look at more of the top stories in tomorrow's newspapers. Do not go anywhere.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back.
Historic day here today.
How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armour on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
You are watching The Wrap. Let's continue to take you through the newspapers with Rod and Christina. Going to have a look at the front page of the Mail, and a story that will disappoint and shock a lot of people. And this is that after consultation, the government has decided to reject calls for a major prostate cancer screening programme. Are you surprised by that, Rod?
No, and I'm also quite pleased.
Oh, why?
Because, not particularly on economic grounds. I don't think this is an economic argument. It's a far more existential argument about whether people should live their lives with the continual fear of dying hanging over them from some disease which probably won't kill them. Now, the government's made it clear that there are people who are specifically at risk from prostate cancer, and they will be treated and they will be investigated for signs of the disease. But I think you can diagnose too much, I think. And I think we will have a healthier and happier population if we were a little less inclined to rush towards hospital every time we feel there's something slightly wrong with us.
But Christina, if you are diagnosed, then you're able to deal with whatever has been diagnosed.
Well, I'm torn on this one, and obviously I haven't got the medical evidence in front of me, none of us has. But when these decisions are made, many factors contribute to them, and one of them is overtreatment, and the result of overtreatment can be erectile dysfunction, which obviously is not the same as death, but is not great for a lot of people. And
pretty much the same in my book, but there we are.
And I think it's like NICE exists to make these kinds of decisions, which are, and NICE often make them on economic grounds. I think we need more medical background before you launch into the kind of many more thousands of people are going to die, because overtreatment can cause huge issues, and not just erectile dysfunction. I think I read somewhere that people could die through treatment, actually. So it's a very finely balanced decision, and we are not the experts here, and the government advisors are the experts. So I wouldn't instantly... I understand if you've had prostate cancer, like David Cameron, that's been successfully
yes, he has been campaigning for this.
Yes, I understand if you've been campaigning for this, you would be disappointed, but I don't think it necessarily means that the wrong decision has been made.
We've only got about 30 seconds to talk about pigeons and why they're able to return home.
Them, haven't you? You've shortchanged Britain's community of pigeons by
talking
about other things. You don't like them. That's what it is.
They're very worried about their prostates, these poor pigeons.
They are incredibly bright. You may despise them, you urban people, but they are incredibly bright. They've evolved extraordinarily well. They're one of the few animals outside the primates, and magpies is another one, as it happens, that can identify themselves in a mirror, on the mirror test. They're very clever creatures, and I think the odium poured upon them by you ghastly North Londoners.
I don't live in North London. Anyway, the story is that they use magnetic sensors in their livers, and that is a compass that they can find their way home.
Astonishing, but anyway, but all birds are fascinating.
I think they're flying rats. We shall end the debate there. Coming up, good news for Scotland fans and head coach Steve Clarke ahead of the first World Cup appearance in 28 years.
An interview that lasted nearly 5 minutes. We talked about Prime Minister Starmer. We talked about the special relationship with who he said. It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me, and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to? In the Rose Garden, in the East Wing.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
It feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too. Everything in America feels kind of torn in two right now, and it has been an intense few weeks for Minneapolis.
How many more people have to die?
This is not America.
A large and growing protest movement. They're vocal and they're angry.
These immigration rates?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
We just arrived in Doha, just ahead of President Trump, and look at that. The horse-backed military, and beyond them, the skyline of a city transformed.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appear to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
What do America's Christian faithful make of the president's pop at the Pope?
The ones that vote for him are going to vote for him through thick and thin.
Before anybody criticizes the Pope, they need to think more than twice.
Mark Stone from Sky News. Will you stop buying Russian energy? Is there any assurance for Palestinian self-determination? Of course. It's a big shift by President Trump.
This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's a big shift. It's very positive.
Sky News, the full story first.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can. We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News. People are directly protesting. The whole neighborhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming. It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Let's catch up on all the very latest sports news with Matt.
We're here at Silverstone to see if Alpine's Franco Colapinto can pick which of these 5 drivers is the real professional.
So the idea is we're going to do hot laps and then we're going to have a race.
Is it karting drivers or like...
Professional driver.
Professional driver, not karting.
No, not karting.
Can you show me their faces?
It's a mixture of ages.
Okay.
No, I can't show you their faces because you might recognise one of them.
Green flag, green flag.
Vamos!
Casi got wet or is slicks?
I think they're
slicks.
Oh
my god.
Right.
Slicks in the wet. That's proper English, huh?
That's how we do it at Silverstone.
Actually, really good lines, eh? It's quite tricky with the slicks on the wet. What?
So what do we think of him or her?
We got girls and men.
Yes, we have girls.
Okay, we got a mix. Hit the curve, no curve. A bit wide. Hit the curve, come on.
I mean, actually, I don't think you need this right now. You can just talk.
No, this is quite cool, eh?
I got
a bit of oversteer. Okay. The Alpine is better than that. Oh, sliding.
Right, so what do we make of this one so far? Driver number 1, what do we think?
Nah, he's not a pro. The pro would be like this on the straight.
What do we make of the second?
Oh, this guy. Hit a king, eh?
Okay.
You see, he did what the coach said. He's got some nice boots.
Yeah?
The boots, are they given by the track? No?
Yeah.
They are personal.
Yeah, well, that could be a giveaway, couldn't it?
Police. Oh, the body! It's gonna follow the cart.
Using his
He's using all the
physical
drag.
ballast.
He's using the outside of the track.
Okay.
It's very slippery in the rubber.
So
Good, I like him.
potentially the pro.
Look! Okay, vamos!
Oh.
He has extra time.
It was a bit of peacocking then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit of showboating.
No, he loves it.
Yeah.
He's probably racing go-kart.
Yeah, okay.
They got pressure, right? They got cameras on them.
Yeah, he's got you commentating.
For them, yeah.
Whoa. What do you think?
He's really, he carried a lot of speed there. This one is good, and the next one, I think the two previous ones were not.
So 1 and 2, we're saying no. We don't think.
No.
But 3 and 4 potentially.
But number 2 was good.
Okay.
I think he's young.
Okay, so this is your number 3 here
This is
now.
number 3.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. Number 3 and 4, I trust. More than my 43 actually. I'm set to 43 for Paul. I'm gonna go to take him some fuel out, put him the pressures properly. Oh, look at him! My man taking the short line.
The weather's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, the record-breaking hot spell is coming to an end, with temperatures dropping over the next few days to around average by Sunday. Many places will start warm and fine tomorrow, but cloud in the west will bring patchy rain, mainly over the windy northwest of Scotland. Cloud will push eastwards through the morning, allowing Wales and Ireland to become sunny by lunchtime. Rain will take over more of Scotland, while showery outbreaks will develop across central and southwest England. Elsewhere, it'll be mainly dry.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, that was the wrap. Thank you so much for watching. All the top stories coming up right here on Sky News with Sam Naz. Stay tuned.